world champion kickboxer, pimp, mafia-associated criminal. Like, I've got all this stuff, and it was like, who is this dude? Like, surely it can't all be true.
How does someone go from showing off Bugattis, private jets, and mansions to standing in front of judges in 3 different countries? Andrew Tate, one of the loudest and most controversial figures on the internet, built an empire out of shock value, disciplined talk, and promises of wealth. Millions tuned in daily to hear him tell men how to live like kings. But behind the fast cars and viral quotes, accusations began to pile up. And now, the self-proclaimed top G finds himself at the center of one of the most chaotic legal battles in recent memory.
She's trying to frame me, but God knows the truth. There's no evidence in my file because I've done nothing wrong. Everybody knows I'm innocent.
They charge me with garbage because they have nothing, there are no victims, I've done nothing wrong.
When you get to a certain level of fame, you either put on a dress or you go to jail, and I'm happy to make my choice, which is jail every single time.
It's all hilarious, bro. It's a joke. Human trafficking for TikTok. The whole thing's
Romania, the United Kingdom, even the United States. 3 different stages, 3 sets of investigations, and a global audience that can't look away. Some fans swear it's all a conspiracy designed to silence him. Others insist the allegations finally prove what critics have been warning about for years. And while the internet screams back and forth, courts are quietly building cases that could decide his future forever.
Started as some fringe idea between 2 brothers trying to empower all of their fans.
Yeah, money makes money, so we have to give you money. We have to give you access to credit. We have to give you access to money that's being done by fundraiser.com. Networking makes money. We're gonna give you access to that via the job board in Real World 2.0. Certification. We're gonna make sure you have a certificate. So if you dedicate a few months inside of the Real World 2.0, you're gonna leave with the same certificate.
This is the rise, the reckoning, and the trial era of Andrew Tate. But before we dive in, hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you think is the biggest unanswered question in this case. Is it about the charges, the money trail, or how he still manages to influence millions while under investigation? I'll feature the sharpest comments in our next video. Because trust me, the story you're about to hear is even more twisted than the headlines you've seen. Before the arrests, the bans, and the scandals, Andrew Tate was just another athlete trying to make a name for himself. A 4-time world champion in kickboxing, he had the belts, the skill, and a fighter's mentality. But when his time in the ring slowed down, Tate set his eyes on something bigger, building an empire through the internet. It started quietly. A stint on Big Brother UK in 2016 gave him his first taste of mainstream attention, until controversy around his comments and behavior forced him off the show. For most people, that would have been the end of their TV career. For Tate, it was just the beginning. He realized something most influencers didn't. Controversy sells. Every fiery statement, every outrageous claim, every viral clip, it all worked like fuel for the algorithm. While other creators were begging for attention, Tate hacked the system by becoming impossible to ignore. Then came his business empire. Hustlers University, later rebranded, sold courses on money, fitness, and escaping the matrix. Tens of thousands of young men signed up, paying monthly fees to learn the so-called secrets of becoming rich and powerful. His war room, a secretive community promising access to Tate's inner circle, added another stream of income. Rumors suggest these ventures brought in millions every month. Whether those numbers were exaggerated or not, one thing is clear: the marketing worked. On TikTok, Tate became unavoidable. Not because he posted himself, but because an army of followers clipped his most extreme soundbites and blasted them across the platform. Every scroll was another Tate rant about success, women, or discipline. Some found it motivating, others found it dangerous. But nobody could stop talking about him. And just like that, Andrew Tate transformed from a retired fighter into one of the most talked about figures on the planet. A man who once fought opponents in the ring was now fighting for dominance in the online attention economy. But success that fast always comes with a price. And soon the backlash would hit harder than any punch he ever took in the ring. As Tate's face began dominating TikTok feeds and YouTube shorts, it wasn't just fans paying attention. Journalists, watchdog groups, and parents started sounding alarms. His clips weren't just about discipline or success, many were about women, relationships, and control. To critics, his words weren't edgy or motivational. They were dangerous. By mid-2022, the pressure reached a breaking point. One by one, the biggest platforms started banning Andrew Tate. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and even YouTube pulled the plug, citing violations of their policies on hate speech and harmful content. Overnight, Tate went from being the most viral man on the internet to being digitally erased. But here's the twist. The bans didn't silence him. If anything, they turned him into a martyr. Suddenly, his followers weren't just fans. They were soldiers in what he called the war against the Matrix. Every ban became proof of his claims that powerful forces were trying to shut him down. And his business? Rumors suggest Hustlers University actually grew after the bans. Students and subscribers rallied around him, convinced they were part of a movement that the world was desperate to suppress. His disappearance from mainstream platforms only pushed his content deeper into underground channels, Telegram groups, podcasts, and alternative streaming sites. The internet was now split in two. On one side, critics called him a textbook example of toxic masculinity, warning he was warping a generation of young men. On the other, fans saw him as the only one telling the truth about life, success, and power. The controversy made him bigger than ever. But if internet bans were one battle, what came next was a full-scale war. Because soon, Tate wouldn't just be fighting critics online, he'd be fighting law enforcement in the real world. The tipping point came at the very end of 2022. Just days after sparring with Greta Thunberg on Twitter in a viral exchange, Romanian police raided Andrew Tate's luxury compound. Videos spread like wildfire, squads of armed officers, rows of luxury cars being hauled away, and a stone-faced Tate led out in handcuffs. Authorities in Romania accused Tate, his brother Tristan, and two associates of running what they described as an organized network designed to exploit women. The allegations were explosive. Claims that women were lured in with promises of relationships, then pressured into working in adult content under coercive control. Tate denied everything, calling the accusations a political setup meant to silence him. Still, the images told a story of their own. The Bugattis and Ferraris that had once symbolized freedom now sat behind police tape. The brothers, who once branded themselves as untouchable, were suddenly facing months of house arrest and endless court hearings. The internet reacted instantly. His critics celebrated, claiming justice had finally caught up with the top G. His fans doubled down, saying the arrest proved his warnings about shadowy elites pulling the strings. Memes, hashtags, and theories flooded social media, turning a real criminal case into a digital circus. And here's what most people missed. The Romanian process was messy. One case was sent back to prosecutors for more investigation, while another continued forward with separate allegations. It wasn't the clean-cut guilty or not guilty narrative people expected. It was drawn out, technical, and complicated. But whether you believed the charges or not, one thing was clear. This was no longer just internet drama. The self-proclaimed top G was officially entangled in the criminal justice system. And just when people thought the Romanian saga was wild enough on its own, another country stepped in, with charges that stretched back years. By mid-2025, just as the Romanian case dragged on with delays and appeals, a new bombshell dropped, this time from the United Kingdom. The Crown Prosecution Service announced that Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan were being charged with 21 separate offenses tied to events between 2012 and 2015. 10 charges for Andrew, 11 for Tristan. The allegations ranged from misconduct and exploitation to serious trafficking claims. Suddenly, the story wasn't just about what happened in Romania. It stretched back over a decade, across borders, and into their past lives in the UK. For critics, it was confirmation that the accusations weren't isolated. They argued it painted a long-running pattern of behavior. For Tate's supporters, it was all too convenient, another country piling on once they saw Romania making headlines. But here's the catch. Andrew Tate couldn't just hop on a plane to London and face trial right away, because under international law, his Romanian case takes priority. Only when that is resolved, whether it ends in dismissal, conviction, or acquittal, can extradition even be considered. Until then, the UK charges remain in waiting, hanging over him like a storm cloud that hasn't broken yet. And if that wasn't enough, there's also a civil trial scheduled in Britain for 2026, brought by multiple women who claim abuse. That means even if criminal cases collapse, the fight isn't over. Tate denies all allegations, but the number of legal fronts continues to multiply. 3 years earlier, he was banned for being too controversial. Now, he was juggling potential trials in 2 countries. And just as the world tried to process that, yet another twist came from across the Atlantic. So, where does all of this leave Andrew Tate? Right now, he's caught in the middle of a legal maze with no clear exit. In Romania, prosecutors are still pursuing organized crime and trafficking cases. The process has been slow, with delays, appeals, and cases being sent back for review. But if the courts move forward, the penalties could mean years behind bars. In the UK, 21 charges are lined up, waiting for extradition once Romania's process is done. If even a fraction of those charges lead to convictions, the consequences would be devastating. Add to that the civil trial set for 2026, where multiple women are suing him, and it's clear this battle isn't ending anytime soon. And then there's Florida, the wild card. Investigations in the US can move silently for months, then explode overnight with indictments. Or they can fizzle out quietly, leaving more questions than answers. Nobody knows which way this one will go. The stakes couldn't be higher. If Tate walks free, he could spin it as proof that the so-called Matrix failed to silence him. If he's convicted, his empire and reputation could crumble overnight. Either way, his story has become much bigger than one influencer's fate. It's about free speech versus harmful influence, fame versus accountability, and what happens when internet power collides head-on with the law. But there's still one final question. What will his legacy be? A visionary who fought the system, or a cautionary tale of a man who flew too close to the sun? From fast cars and private jets to handcuffs and courtrooms, Andrew Tate's journey has been anything but ordinary. He rose from a little-known fighter to one of the most viral figures on the internet, built an empire on controversy, and now finds himself staring down trials in Romania, the UK, and even the United States. His supporters insist he's a truth teller being targeted by powerful forces. His critics argue he's finally facing accountability after years of manipulation. And the internet? It's turned the whole saga into a non-stop spectacle, a circus of memes, debates, and conspiracy theories. But at the end of the day, the outcome won't be decided by hashtags or fan edits. It'll be decided in courtrooms by judges and juries weighing evidence that the public hasn't even seen yet. And until those verdicts come in, one truth remains. Andrew Tate is living through the most high-stakes trial era of his life. So, what do you think? Is this the downfall of the top G, or the setup for the biggest comeback the internet has ever seen? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll feature the sharpest takes in a future video. And if you want to stay ahead of every twist and turn in this story, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell, because this saga is far from over. Thanks for watching, and get ready, because the next chapter could change everything.